It's Guild Ball Tonight, your independent source for Guild Ball news, information, and conversation.
Episode 16 for July 14th, 2015. Hello and welcome to another installment of the Guild Ball Tonight podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and joining me tonight once again is my co-host, Bill.
So yeah, I like co-host better than regular call or first-time listener.
Well, yeah, that's probably given the fact that we don't take calls at this point. Although, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe at some point we will take calls. That would be a fun show. I can't imagine what kind of calls we'd get, given the fact that so much of our audience would be up in the middle of the night. But maybe someday we'll do a call-in episode of Guild Ball Tonight. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So
we'd have to do the live show on a weekend so that everybody is up late and drinking.
There you go. Yeah, because that's the crowd we want. But you know what? You get the crowd you deserve, not the crowd you want. So, all right. So this week on the show, we're going to cover a few news and notes from the last couple of weeks. We are going to announce a winner for our Guild Ball Tonight contest. And then we are going to spend the rest of the show working through a really good bunch of Twitter questions that you guys sent in that all pretty much needed to be responded to. And since so often we don't get around to answering all these, we decided to devote the bulk of the show tonight to actually following through on our promises. So that should be the show. So let's go ahead and get started with a couple quick news items. So they have continued to tempt us with season 2, even though, as Bill is quick to remind us, we haven't finished playing season 1.
But I'm really excited, Phil. They actually put up a render of a season 2 model here that nobody has seen and everybody's excited about. It's a model called Minx. I think it was in the. Oh wait, Minx isn't a season 2 spoiler.
No. Yeah, no. But Minx should be available in metal very, very soon. And I'm looking forward to being able to order that one and sort of complete my collection, as it were, because it is a glaring hole in my lineup. So, but what they did show us this week was a new Union mascot. And that was a player named Strongbox. And Strongbox is a tortoise.
And I'm thinking this is going to be a large base model.
Given the size of the treasure chest strapped to its back, which seems a bit diminutive on that shell, I'm thinking maybe you're right. We were promised 40 millimeter based mascots in the future, and this little turtle might be the first one of those that we've caught sight of.
So Phil, indeed. I have to admit, I'm kind of looking forward, after seeing this picture, to the fluff, because the Union right now, if I understood some of the, I don't remember where it was said, but I think it was said in one of the interviews that the lump in coin is actually a bag of gold, bag of payment that they've tied off
inside of the snake.
Right, and then here we see this slow moving tortoise with a big old chest of goodies strapped to his back.
Yeah, the Union doesn't seem to favor speed in their mascots.
No. And they kind of leave the money just out there.
Well, I guess if your mascots are all slow, then they can't get away with your money.
True. But if your mascots are all slow, they can't get away with your money. I mean,
okay, yeah, that is also a true statement.
I mean, I think inflection there is definitely important on both sides.
Context is everything. So yeah, it's an interesting choice. I think. At this point, we obviously know nothing about how he's going to play in the game or what sort of abilities he'll bring to the table. But I think he should provide another nice character in the ranks of the mascots. You know, the drawing of him, he's just got this wickedly evil looking smirk on his face. So he's definitely not a nice turtle. It's a decidedly bad turtle. So although I don't know how many players he's going to run down, I suspect that will be an issue for him. So yeah, but it's another really nice piece of art. So, and it's a surprise. I don't know that we were expecting a Union turtle to pop up. So all I know is that it just makes me even more excited than ever for the Mason's elephant that I expect to arrive any day now.
Oh God, the Mason's babar! I can see it now.
Well, if force of will is good for anything, then that elephant will exist. So,
oh boy,
yeah,
it's that in the fisherman's seahorse that's just flopping around dry on the ground.
Yeah, an aquatic creature would make an excellent mascot for the fishermen, I think. So that is I guess that's one mascot down and 7 to go for season 2. So we are looking forward to seeing him, and still no official word on who the evolved players are going to be. I know that's one that we are all watching like hawks, and still no other new concepts spotted. But I think that we have a lot to look forward to with 40 players in the release. So
we do.
They should be a regular occurrence moving forward.
Ooh, and here's a nice little piece of news, just a little extra tidbit.
What was that?
I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, but when the orders were when Element Games first started carrying everything,
mm-hmm.
and all the orders went in, dice were missing. So I actually received this whole box of extra models that the local group and I had gotten together and ordered from Element Games. Great place to order from. We got everything in. And then I promptly forgot about the fact that we had also ordered dice for one of our players.
Mm-hmm.
The dice have shown up.
Oh, okay.
So have you seen the Guild Ball dice yet? The team dice?
I have not seen a set of them. I didn't get... And I still kick myself for not getting the Kickstarter dice, but at the time, I stretched the funds as far as I could just to get all the figures that I could.
Right. I'll say this. The dice are very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Francis picked up some Mason dice, so I got the Mason dice in with the little Mason symbol on there and the whole
best kind of dice.
Yeah, they're nice looking dice. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of, but it's really personal taste, is I use a box of those little cubes of small D6s you can buy at the game store.
Sure.
It's got, I don't know, it's probably got
32 or 36 dice in it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I use.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do that myself. The Chessex dice, yeah.
Yeah. And see, and these are actually full size. Right. I say full size, they're full size D6s. So they're a bit bigger than I normally would use. But I gotta say, after seeing the symbols engraved on there, I'm actually tempted to pick up some.
Yeah, my concern with the official dice is the number of times I have to roll more than 10. I would just end up buying them all twice. And,
yes.
Sometimes you just don't want to open that door. So, yeah, so we have not ordered them down here at Guild Ball Tonight headquarters, but who knows? It's probably just a matter of time, as with everything else. So the next piece of business is a bit of podcast news. We are going to be adding a new segment to the show, and in fact, the first installment of it will be at the end of tonight's show, and that's going to be a club rundown segment. So, one of the things we can always benefit from is finding out where people who play Guild Ball are located, especially when they happen to be close by. But, maybe you didn't know that those people were located close by. So we are letting we're letting clubs write in and let us know who they are, where they are, and how to get in touch with them. And we will we'll give them a mention at the end of the show. Now, the way this is going to work is that we can't just keep adding to this list forever, or else it will become a very long, we hope, extremely long list. So what I will do is I will give everybody who writes in 2, maybe 3 weeks in the segment. At that point, I'm going to roll you out. But if you write back in, you go back in. So we'll do that until it becomes impossible, and then we'll figure out something else to do. So if you want to be in the segment, go ahead and drop me an email, and that's going to be at guildballtonight@gmail.com. Like I said, just tell me the name of your club, where you're at, and the easiest way to find you, whether it's Facebook or a website or smoke signals, and we will get you in on that segment. So definitely,
we're going to get at least one person that says smoke signals, right?
Yeah. Well, if that's what you tell me, that's what I read. That's just the way it is. I don't validate these things. I just parrot them. So
just parrot them. Nice. On the tail of that, there is another piece of news that dovetails quite nicely into that. It's almost like this was planned, even though it wasn't. Which is the Northy on the boards, the quartermaster of the pundits.
Yes,
posted a fantastic thread in where is it? It's in general, Guild Ball discussions. There we go. And it's find your local pundit and club.
Yeah.
So the nice thing is all the pundits are starting to show up on there, including, surprise, surprise, there's a pundit right around the corner from me.
Yeah.
And a couple down there in Tampa.
Yeah, I think there's 3 pins on that map in Tampa, because Tampa is the Guild Ball capital of the universe through sheer coincidence and surprisingly little effort on my part. But yeah, one thing I did notice, however, is that those pins don't actually tell people exactly where you live. So you can't use them to spy. Yes. But they do give you the general neighborhood. I think the pin for me is pointed at like a used car lot over on the main road around the corner. So you can look for me there. Don't get your hopes up. But it's great just to see, about where people are around you, and it just reminds you that England's got a lot of Guild Ball players. But no, I mean, we're seeing some pop up in some out of the way places. We've got one in Australia. There's one in Turkey. There's a few in Germany. We're getting around this game. So, hopefully that map will be pretty much impossible to read at a certain magnification in the not too distant future. So, if you're still interested in the Pundit program or just finding out about it, I know that Northy is certainly still taking applications for it. So head on over to the Guild Ball forums and track down the threads for the Pundit program and find out what you need to do to get yourself in there. And not only will you have the honor and the joy of spreading the game far and wide, but they are working to sort out some fun, interesting, and useful ways to reward people who put in that effort too. So there might be some cool perks to being involved in the evangelism of this game. So take a look.
Nice.
All right, and in other local news, I do get to be very excited to say that the U.S. finally has its first tournament event on the calendar, and that is right here in my backyard at Armada Games on September 5th. They are planning to run out a tournament, and while the actual final details are still being ironed out, the date and location are certainly certainly on the ready. So if you happen to be anywhere in or around the Sunshine State in the beginning of September, you can come down and get involved in what is most likely the first U.S. tournament, and I'll be there, and I'll probably be recording stuff for this very show at that event. So should be interesting, and looking forward to it myself. So it's not just you English guys getting the tournaments now. So this will be the first of many. We will bury you beneath the weight of our slow but steady march towards involvement. So, all right, and then one last piece of business is that we have to resolve a contest that we announced on the last episode. Now the contest was to basically just stop Flint from scoring a goal in a scenario that I presented, which was based loosely on the events of a game that I had played a couple nights before the last show we did. Now, the way that scenario worked out, the entrance, which we had a nice response. You know, there were at least a dozen people who sent in responses by email, and then more than a few who posted them on the forums and such. And I did my best to consider all of those, but I'm not going to promise I caught them all because you didn't follow directions.
Directions are hard.
Directions are important. No, it's just, you know, when there's a volume like that, and when it's spread over 4 different social platforms, really, do me a favor and email me things like that, because otherwise it's going to be hard for me to track everything down. But I will say that those in the final group of consideration did all email me. So what really emerged from the responses were 3 themes. There was the sort of the wise play. You know, there's no way this could go wrong, and it will absolutely accomplish the goal, but is just terribly boring response. Then there were the gamblers. There were people who were going to take a little bit of a risk and see if they couldn't rely on some long odds to achieve the goal. And then there were the people who were a little bit more aware of the traits that the players involved might have, and some interesting ways to use the character abilities to accomplish that goal.
So I got to admit, you said character abilities. I was fully expecting somebody to say Ratchet in a sock smashing on the table.
A Ratchet in a sock smashing on the table.
It's the easiest way to stop Flint from scoring.
All right. So what we ended up coming up with there was the wise move was simply to walk away from the goal and away from Flint. Flint's parting blow could do nothing to stop or hinder Ratchet in any way. And he has enough move to have gotten far enough away that Flint could not have run over to him to generate some momentum, gotten that momentum, and then gotten back within scoring range, which would have meant that the objective of just stopping him for that one turn would have been accomplished. Absolutely. That's what you should do. That is hands down what you should have done. And if you were actually playing a game, especially a game that actually meant something, like a tournament game or a grudge match, that's what you should do. But we were looking for something that was maybe a little more fun. So the second one that came up was to go ahead and play the odds that maybe there was a way that you could get in those 2 tackles that you needed to take the ball away from Flint and leave him without enough influence to take the ball back and still score. So the general gist there was that Ratchet would move around Flint within his within his zone of control so that there wouldn't be any parting blows or anything, not that it really mattered, then go ahead and use that one influence to try to get that first tackle result, and then rely on the second parting blow to the second tackle from the parting blow, hoping that you could position yourself in such a way that even using where'd he go, Flint maybe would have to risk a parting blow in order to get within melee range to get that momentum. It's a lot more risky, very fiddly, might not work if you don't position Ratchet perfectly. Much more interesting, but not interesting enough, and really very risky. However, the third option, I think, is where the one that I thought was most fun and most interesting, and to add weight to this option sort of being the qualified way to go. When I presented this quiz to Jamie P, this is actually the solution he came up with when asked how you could accomplish the goal in a clever way. So I think that with the combination of obvious fun and the sort of the endorsement of one of the game's, more reputed thinkers going with it, mm-hmm. The third approach was definitely the way we ended up going, and that was for Ratchet to go ahead and attack Flint to get a first tackle, also a momentum, then use that momentum along with the momentum that the scenario stated he had available to summon Mainspring. Now, we never specifically said whether or not Mainspring had been taken out, but I did say that no other characters were affecting the play. And if you listened back to the show, I had actually mentioned that I had, as the Masons player, I had taken out Mainspring earlier in the game. So you could have made the assumption. And generally making the assumption because it gives you the ability to give a more interesting answer would have been okay. Anyway, so what you want to do is to go ahead and get that first tackle, then resurrect Mainspring and have him move into an advantageous position and basically double your chances of getting a tackle on a parting blow from Flint, because he would most likely need to leave both players' melee zone. And that just doubles your chances. It uses a cool ability, and it's frankly unexpected. So all those together, I think, qualify that response as being the one that we decided was most fun. So, two people sent in that response, Matthew Lotz and Scott Parkin. Now, because random is the greatest thing ever, I've decided to flip a coin between the two of them to see which one wins it. So, Bill, I am going to have you call this in the air.
Excellent.
So, go ahead whenever you're ready.
We're going to go ahead and tell heads.
Heads. It is, in fact, heads. So that would be the first person. So Matthew Lotz has won this contest. Congratulations, Matthew. And I will be in touch to work out how to get you those base inserts that I promised. So good job, guys. It was a lot of fun, actually. I liked the way that pretty much everybody answered the question. I got everything from short, simple responses to very, very well described, elaborate descriptions, right down to some really funny responses as well. So, thanks to everybody who answered. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and that certainly won't be the last contest we do. So,
congratulations to Matt, and yeah, we need to come up with some more stuff.
Well, I still have a few. Base inserts left, so I think we can guarantee that that will pop up in the prize box again. So if you didn't get him this time, there's always next time. Trust. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our Twitter questions. Now, as I said earlier, we are going to devote a little bit more time than we normally do to this segment of the show because, every week I put out the offer to ask us these questions, and we usually leave a few on the table. And this week we're going to try our best to get through more of them than we usually do because, you took the time to ask. We should take the time to answer.
At least every once in a while.
Absolutely. So, first up was Maurice, who asked for some mascot analysis. He wanted to know which mascots helped their team the most, which one's the coolest, and maybe some sneaky plays to toss in with those mascots. So Bill, which mascot do you think helps their team the most?
I was really torn on this. And it pains me because we keep coming back to Masons. However, the good old chimp, I absolutely love Marbles.
Yeah.
And just across the board, I find him, since the release version of the Crazy Cat came out, I find Marbles to be really the most effective mascot.
I will say that Marbles has a lot of tremendous utility. His ability to goad players and to sort of dictate their next movement is, while often suicidal, is extremely useful in giving the Masons the ability to sort of shape the movement of a turn. Mm-hmm. But for me, I think that the mascot that I think is the most, which helps their team the most, of the ones that I've played.
See, I have a prediction on what you're going to say here.
All right, and which one is that?
I think you're going to say Flask.
No, if the conditions game mattered enough, Flask would be great because of his Intensify.
Right.
And because of his ability to help Vitriol and even Mist if you bring in Mist. But I think, and while I think the conditions game is going to be a much bigger part of Alchemist play after the Season 2 All Captain comes out, and you've sort of got that option between Midas's Speed Demons and Smoke's Condition guys. Because, like I said, I don't know anything about Smoke, but we almost have to assume that's the way it's going to go because it's just an obvious choice.
Right.
I think at that point, Flask with Intensify will be very interesting. But at this point, the mascot who, there's basically one mascot who I try to keep alive because, it's pretty easy to get a mascot killed. But there's one mascot who I want to have around through the entire game doing things that make my play better, and that's Coin.
Really?
Because he's handing out that free bonus time. And so I like to have Coin. I like to have him alive and kicking and giving me that extra dice on a regular basis. It's just, he's just a little dice dispenser that walks slowly around the field. And so, tossing him, a few inches behind Hemlock when she's throwing those crucial blinds, or a player like that who's got something they just have to do and maybe isn't throwing as many dice as I would like. It's just a great ability, and it's one that I really appreciate having. So I think that when it comes to just being a mascot that does something, Coin is definitely high on my personal list.
See, that's interesting to me because I was I was thinking about the influence from Coin and the bonus time free play that you get. I don't know. I just, what? Maybe what it is, because the next part of this question is the dirty tricks. Mm-hmm. And while I've seen some nice dirty tricks with Salt the rat, and while the Raven does just absolutely beef up Cosset, my dirty trick bag really comes down to marbles, because I've seen a couple of ways to use him, both straight up with tooled up, and then also, I just feel like I get more utility out of marbles, especially with the goad.
Yeah, and it's possible. I think that the main reason I picked a player other than marbles to answer for this part is because part B of this question, my answer is marbles, right? Yeah. And the sneaky plays, one of them is marbles. So, I couldn't say marbles for everything. And since Flint's not a mascot, I don't feel compelled to always answer marbles.
Wow, Flint the mascot. I might have to figure out how to paint that one up. So what is your, before I jump into mine, what is your sneaky play with marbles?
So my sneaky play with marbles, and I did this to Boar one time, and it was one of the crowning achievements of my Guild Ball career. Goad plus a second move. So you go ahead and you get marbles into position at the edge of his goad range. It's 6 or 8 inches. I forget off the top of my head. Then you have either Decimate having given him second wind prior to this, or you activate Honor before the goad target activates. Give him her second activation ability,
right?
Yeah, superior strategy, I think it's called, so that he can go again. So he can, if you arrange all those pieces together better than I just described them, then what you're able to do is you're able to go to target at 6 or 8 inches, then move Marbles' full move, which is already well outside of the range of most players. If you do this to somebody like Boar, you're already probably out of his charge range for the next turn. But if you're using it on a player who isn't that far away, or if Marbles maybe didn't start far enough away to begin with, then that second move that you get from either Decimate or Honor can now take him an extra move away. And you basically just take a player who really wants to move to one specific place on the board, and you either force them to stand still by forfeiting their move, or to move in entirely the wrong direction with no ability to accomplish anything on that move. So I really like that sort of, get it out of there. And then the other thing that you accomplish with that is you just get Marbles out of town, right? Like, Marbles is still, at the end of the day, he's a tough mascot, but he's not an impervious mascot. So you've taken a player who your opponent was probably starting to have, visions of 2 victory points dancing in their head because your mascot was in the thick of things. And then you threw him into the, back corner of the board. And, if nothing else, that combination of having dictated their next move and taken 2 victory points off the table is going to be just a little bit demoralizing. So you're going to get that psychological damage in there as well.
So I got to admit, my dirty plays all surround goad as well.
Yeah.
But I don't look at giving him a second move, and I have never used superior strategy on marbles.
Okay.
What I have done is given marbles extra armor. Mm-hmm. Because a 4+ to hit plus 2 armor means he's pretty tough to get through.
Sure.
I have used goad, backed up a bit, and then so that when somebody comes in, they're not going to make it to me, and they end up in range of either Honor's responsive play to allow her to make an attack, because the movement must be direct. Mm-hmm. And I've made a lot of use of that direct. Like, the nice thing about the direct portion of the movement, move directly with goad, is if you park marbles behind Honor, if a model bumps Honor's base, they have to stop.
Right.
And if they were charging, like, Boar likes to do, they can, they can attack Honor, but she immediately gets to start going to town. And that becomes especially true with countercharge on Brick, simply because Brick has enough, both with his knockback and his tack going up to a 9+. He usually can. Yeah, I've had a lot of good success in triggering a knockdown with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's that is Marbles is a very useful little monkey. But
now here's the one more thing I will throw in from a dirty play standpoint,
right.
And that would be the fact that Marbles has tackle as a first result.
Yeah.
And it's momentum generating.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of the mascots have tackle as the first, but like for example, Coin is not momentum generating.
Right.
So
yeah, no, he does get a little bit more reward for taking the risk of getting stuck in on a play. Now another little sneaky play that I've used with the engineers and mainspring. And I used this accidentally on myself in the last match we played, but it got me to thinking of ways that I could use it intentionally, is to shove mainspring when you're playing against him back into his own players when you blow him up. So that they get the power. Because I managed to, in the game that we played 2 weeks ago, I managed to accidentally have Mallet shove him into Honor and set her on fire. And it got me thinking that had I lined that up better, I may have been able to push him into Ballista, who was also standing nearby, and gotten a little bit of extra reward on that takedown. So definitely, if you're playing against the engineers, keep in mind the push options that you have available for shoving mainspring around on the turn that you take him out, or the turns that you take him out, as the case may be with mainspring, because you might be able to kind of turn the tables on the landmine if you play it right. But nice. to answer the missing part of that question as to which is the coolest mascot, I will say that I think that hands down my converted Marbles is the coolest mascot. So
now see, and this is where I flip over to the fluff.
Yeah.
And from a fluff standpoint, while I have a good dear friend, Ben, who loves Princess, I think Coin is the coolest. Come on. They shoved a money bag down his throat and tied his neck off.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you there. That's it's a great bit of concept. Absolutely.
Now, from a conversion standpoint, Phil, your converted Marbles is nice. However, I did see, and I apologize to who's ever model this is. Email in and let me know, and I'll mention it next show. Somebody actually put a scum up that they had converted. Picture was on Twitter or Facebook or on the boards, so one of the social media places, and it was scum sitting in some barrels eating the crow. So the crow who
I'll give you points for that.
Yeah, that was I liked that one.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to let's go ahead and move on to the next question here, and that is from John Bucket, who asked, "What style of player would each team benefit from in Season 2?" Because Season 2 is going to it's never going to go away until it comes out, I think. So, this is an interesting question, because I think that it would be very easy to kind of look at the weaknesses of each team and say, well, obviously they could benefit from a player who does that. I mean, the Brewers could really use a fast player, and, the Morticians could really use a striker. But, I think that those exclusions are all on purpose, and it's all part of balance. So the question here really is, what could these teams use to address a deficiency without going all the way into sort of making the differences between the teams irrelevant? If every team could do everything, then you're just rooting for a shirt. you're not sort of playing a play style anymore. So, I think that we could go down the list of teams and sort of identify something that would be useful in a new player, but would still stay within, still stay on the ranch, as it were. So beginning with the Alchemists, what I'd really like to see with them, and it's probably most appropriate to come from the captain, and it's where I think our hopes lie, is just something to make the condition game sort of fully realized with them. Because, when at first glance with the Alchemists, you say, oh, well, the point of this team is that you set people on fire and poison them, and that's how you take them down. And the reality sort of doesn't follow that. The condition game it's a momentum quagmire. You never get enough momentum to do anything. The opponent is able to flush those conditions off of themselves very quickly. It's influence intensive, so you don't really get as many actions out of playing the momentum game as you do otherwise. So, at this point, while you're able to do fun things with conditions as the Alchemist, I don't feel like it has been fully realized as a first choice strategy. So I'd really like to see something happen to sort of optimize conditions, or to make them more efficient or more effective. And so, I think obviously the captain slot is probably where we can look to see that sort of team-wide effect take place. So we have high hopes for Smoke, even though he, almost certainly can't compete with Midas in terms of sheer ability. What he could bring to the team should be interesting. Now, Brewers and Butchers are sort of in the same... They sort of have the same hole, right? They're both slow. They both need to catch up with people and are not always able to do that. But what I will say is just making them faster sort of defeats the point, right? So what I think that they should probably look at is ways to deal with speed that just aren't being fast. Now, with what we've seen hinted at with the Butcher's goalkeeper Tenderizer, I think maybe that's a good way to go potentially with both of these teams, is to have a player who just makes the other game, the kicking game, more difficult for the other guys, and gives you those opportunities maybe to catch goal scorers, or to hinder them, and maybe send a few balls wide now and then. So I think that I have a suspicion that certainly with the Butchers, if not with both, they're already headed towards a really nice solution to that hole, but without answering it the wrong way. Now,
see, on the Brewers, I would almost want to see them. I know they have a lot of pushing as it is.
Yeah,
I'd almost like to see them get a little more on the combined play, a little more, a few more dodge push plays.
Right.
A player who maybe isn't a full blown striker like Friday, but is a decent 3-6 kick type of player who can move models around. Right. Not without even so much the knockdown, but just move models around.
And that's funny because the next team on the list, the Engineers, that's actually the effect that I targeted for them, was reshaping the field. With the Engineers, what I feel like is that they want to be able to take advantage of minefield with repositions, but they also want to be able to sort of keep people at range, sort of keep them...
Sort of set up barriers.
Yeah, sort of set up the things that they like to do. They like to knock you down and push you around at range, but that sort of requires that you be in a target-rich environment. So sort of a bulldozer, as it were. And if, the Engineers are actually capable of fielding a literal bulldozer. Mm-hmm. So, I think that is a type of player who would certainly benefit them.
Now, it dovetails nicely into the Fishermen.
Right.
My suggestion for the Fishermen was somebody who can put terrain on the board, rough ground. And the reason I say that is almost the entire fisherman team is light-footed. And looking at a lot of boards, I see very little use from that. And it would be nice to see another player who can create some more rough terrain for the fishermen to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I've said before that I think that there's something to Fangtooth and the fisherman team with that, but the ability to lay down sort of AoE template style terrain for them to take advantage of.
And that's what I would look at outside of the Fangtooth. I've played against the Fangtooth gutter, push them around and make them slow. The problem with that is Fangtooth can be avoided.
Yeah.
So it would be much cooler if they had a player that maybe could throw nets on the field or leave puddles or right. I mean, it's
yeah, and those are both well within the concept of the fisherman.
Right.
So
who are we missing?
Well, the Masons are up next. Now, the Masons are already a perfect team. What I would like to see from the Masons personally is somebody who maybe would free up Brick's ability more often. Right now, what happens a lot is that people just glue themselves to Brick and take out his countercharge, and that's just not a lot of fun. I mean, it's a good tactic to use against the Masons, and when he's allowed to run free, Brick can be very disruptive and very powerful. But I feel like maybe what the Masons might benefit from is somebody who just has some kind of a ranged reposition. So they don't have to be right on top of Brick. Because, if you're running Mallet next to Brick, literally next to Brick, he can do that job just fine. Right. But I want Mallet somewhere else. But a player who could somehow do a ranged reposition, whether it's a seduction like dodge or something like Salvo's push bolts or, something, could really be a huge boon to Brick, who increasingly I see getting benched because of how sort of little value he brings when checked, other than taking another player out of the game, so to speak. So, I've been experimenting with more rosters with Decimate or Tower in Brick's slot just to see if they don't sort of have a little bit more efficiency. And I love Brick. Brick's one of my favorite players, but my opponents have figured him out. And I don't get a chance to use him as much as I would like because of it.
So I got to admit, when it comes to the Masons, I have to completely ignore the second half of John's question, the benefit from Season 2. Because what do I think the Masons need? The Masons need Flint's little brother, who is a brawler, in close, has like a half an inch range, is a maverick, right? And gets extra attack when Flint is also on the field.
Okay.
Right? It's the jealous little brother.
Well, as an only child, I don't know that I can empathize with that, but I like the idea. So Morticians desperately want a striker, and I just don't see them getting it since everybody's striker is their striker.
Yeah, I this is an area I knew that would be the answer, right? That everybody's going to jump on. They need a striker. I actually don't think they do.
No, I agree. I think that they are already on the verge of being too much for you to handle if you're not on your game, and giving them sort of the ability to exercise more will on the game would be potentially problematic. So no, I think that I'm not really sure what the Morticians really need, because I haven't played with or against them enough, but I'm pretty sure that what they don't need is to answer a gaping hole in their lineup.
Yeah, I would love to see them get a player, not a captain.
Right.
So not another Obulus with Puppet Master. However, I would like them to see them get a Siren type player. Right? Another somebody who has lure and seduced, or a similar that type of.
I don't know if we can handle three on one team. I mean, you've already got Cassette, you've already got Obulus. It's man,
right. But so you have Cassette for the lure,
yeah,
right. You have Obulus for Puppet Master, but I almost want to say Puppet Master does a bit more.
It does. It does. What does it do? It does. You can do an attack, a jog, or a pass. And I think Lore can only do an attack or a jog. I want to say.
Yeah. See, now I got to go look at Seduced and see what the difference is. Like I want to see a player with like a stripped down Puppet Master. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Another manipulative player. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Seduced can only make you do a pass or an attack.
Okay.
And that's why I kind of like Seduced, is put that player out there. You know what, even, I think if you're right. If you put the lure on that same player, then Cossett's never going to make the field. No,
but what I will say about adding Seduced to the Morticians is right now there's a lot of tearing of garments over Casket's ability to take a player out by using Lore and or Puppet Master to bring them sort of into a trap.
Yes.
And Seduce would be a way that you could add a player with a manipulative ability to this lineup, but not enhance that issue because you're not able to move the player with Seduce. So I think it would be an ability that they could add to the team without potentially introducing an even greater frustration to the opponent above and beyond just the core frustration of having somebody else force you to kick the ball away. But I'm more and more of the opinion that if you feel that you have any right to or ability to hold on to the ball more than the end of your activation, you're probably not all that familiar with Guild Ball anyway. Because nobody holds onto the ball, no matter what, against anybody. It's like you just need to use it or get rid of it. Because, the best ball carrier I have is whoever's in the backfield when Flint comes running by. So, I think you're onto a good idea there for them.
And the other thing is, Morticians can already they can already switch playstyle to be such a heavy combat damage team that I think adding in a little more manipulation is a nice add, and put it on some fragile players.
True. Yeah, they've got enough tough guys. They need some more players that we can actually get some victory points from.
Right.
So, all right, and that just leaves the Union. Now, Union, they're already so stinking diverse that honestly, all I want from the Union in Season 2 is more good stories. Like, I don't care what their abilities are. They've already got just about everything from just about everybody. I just want more good reads.
See, I would like to see So I'm trying to think this through, right? And here's the problem I have with Union. I haven't played Union a lot. In fact, I'm just getting ready to jump in and start playing Union as a pure Union team.
Mm-hmm.
And what I keep running into is that they have multiple choices for almost everything else you want to do, except for that over-the-top striker.
True. I mean, a lot of people sing the praises of Mist, but I don't really rate him myself. I think that he's tricky to use to his fullest extent, and he's very influence intensive to get there.
Well, and I guess, even with that, Mist is in there as their over-the-top striker.
Yeah.
And yes, every other team only has one, typically one striker or a couple of strikers with the captains. I guess where I'm going is when I look at a Union team, other than duplicating out the captain, I have, 3 between Rage, Decimate, and Gutter. I have 3 small base damage dealers. I have Avarice and Greed and Fangtooth, which are 2 large base damage dealers.
Mm-hmm.
I have a control, between Gutter and Hemlock. I have my control players, which can go around. And so I have multiple options that do things in different ways, but I have multiple options for everything except the striker.
Well, that's true.
And the only striker choice I have to go with that sort of top end, 4.6, 4.8 striker. Now I got to go look at what Mist is. But to get into that 4-dice striker range, I only have one choice. Oh, Mist is a 3.8, sorry. But to get into that 8-inch kick range, I only have the one choice.
Right.
So it'd be nice to it would be nice to see a second choice that is a striker in that 8-inch kick range.
Well,
that's a bit different.
Greed's a 4.4 kicker. I mean, that's all the striker you need, right?
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm down with that. I mean, I have lots of plans. See, I'm going to say this and hope John doesn't listen. I have lots of plans to making Greed goals all day long.
You know, that is Greed's kick is one of the most frustrating stats in all of Guild Ball for me, because it feels like it's there for a reason. You know, why would he have
Snapshot.
4? Yeah, but he's got to get there. He's got to get all the way over there without getting killed.
That's why Avarice is there.
I guess
Avarice runs over and drops him off, and then he's there for Snapshot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might have answered the question, but man, that's not a question I wanted to ask. So yeah, it's an intriguing stat line, the 4.4 kick. So yeah, I think that just for the luxury of selection that Union enjoys elsewhere, a second striker might be a good include for Union. All right, so I think that those are some interesting thoughts to think about, and I think that just about everybody listening to us probably has better ideas. So you can always send them to us or share them with us on email, Twitter, Facebook, the aforementioned smoke signals.
Yep.
And let us know what you're thinking, because I think it was an interesting question, and it was a fun sort of mental exercise to go through. So the next question was from Nate Zettel, who asked our impressions on the impact of the guild plot cards.
Love this question.
Yeah.
I almost want to say this needs to be a whole segment in and of itself, but let's see what we can do right now.
All right.
So I love the guild plot cards. Mm-hmm. I am the first one to forget to deal out the deck. But
I don't think you're the first one from what I've been hearing.
Oh, I purely meant John is really good. My local player John is really good because he printed them out. He carries them in his bag. I ordered the deck, so I'm waiting for it to show up, and then it will be in my bag, and I will probably remember. But yeah, no, I love the guild plots. I think they are a great addition to the game without overbalancing. In fact, I don't feel they changed the balance of the game at all.
No, I agree. Yeah, what I think the guild plots add, and it's something that is incredibly valuable, is that they add the ability for an obvious and predictable outcome to be negated. Because when you're playing Guild Ball, everything those players can do is on those cards. And so you can see what's going to happen in most cases. You can see, that this player is going to do this and this player is going to do that. And while individual tactical decisions can still be unexpected or odd, sort of the outcomes are trope. But what the plot cards give you is the ability to upset those plans on occasion, and they're so unpredictable in terms of which ones people have and what's out there that you really don't plan for them. I mean, it might be at the back of your mind that maybe that guy's got don't touch the hair when you're about to line up a huge crippling tackle on him, but it's not going to affect your strategy. You're still going to do it, but then down comes the plot card, and that thing that was unstoppable was suddenly stopped. But it's only going to happen that one time in the game, and it's not going to happen every game. It's going to happen just enough that the game never becomes a dry mathematical exercise. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do. And how do you... I love the fact that you and your opponent are both getting 5 of the cards, but only keeping 3. So you're always doing that little bit of guessing.
Right, because you didn't see 7.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I like the shared deck. I like that it means that there's not going to be 2 identical cards coming down. And another thing I like about them is that by specifically calling them the Season 1 Guild Plot cards, that means that come, this time 2-3 years from now, we're going to have a line of decks to choose from. And it's going to get to the point where it's going to be even more difficult to sort of, see the same effect from game to game to game. Where, maybe heaven forbid, we get 6 plot decks and we're rolling a die 6 to decide which one we're using. And then we're going, So I think that sort of built-in but eventual variety that we're seeing with the Guild Plot cards is one of their features.
Now, I also like the fact that it changes a little bit of how I think about the game when I'm going in. So a lot of times, for example, I might look if I end up make a game of it, which is concede the first goal. I'm almost always going to take that when I'm playing against the fisherman.
True, because you're probably going to concede it anyway.
Because I'm probably going to concede it anyways, exactly. So, there's certain guild plots I'm going to pick up, but then there's other ones that, I'm sort of looking at the table, I'm trying to figure out, how can I'm such a sucker for big plays that this just adds in one additional big play. I can think of a game that I played where I was able to score out and just generate a ton of momentum, extra influence based on make a game of it. And I want to say I picked up one, another one in there as well, all off the first couple of plays.
Right.
So that going into turn 2, I was rolling with just a heavy influence load, and knew that I could immediately jump in and start going to town.
Right. Yeah, they just give you more things to do, and we can't complain when we've got more things to do.
But it's more things to do still in the context of a game without overbalancing things. Right? It's that turn where I had a lot of influence, you would think that was overbalancing, but it was one turn. And I still had to assign it so my opponent knew sort of what was coming in, even though it looked like a lot. All he had to do was weather the storm to get through the turn.
Yeah, I don't think, while I've seen plot cards change the outcome of turns, it's not as often that they change the outcome of games. Maybe sometimes, you pull a card that makes it easier to get a goal or prevents a goal from being taken away. And if that happens to be the last goal of the game, you could say, oh, well, that card won the game. It's like, well, no, really, the card didn't win the game because they had already scored the 8 points.
Right.
And odds are that when you were down, the game was eventually going to go against you anyway, but the card forced the outcome is what it really did.
And the only place I would say that I'm sure I know this is a reason that my regular opponent John hates Flint so much is when you have protect your balls and you've held the card towards the end of the game and then Flint ends up with the ball.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a bad day.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to get into it. So, all right. So why don't we go ahead and move on to the next question, which came from Lee Perry, who asked, "What's the most boring player?" He was thinking in terms of like a one-dimensional player or a player who's just not.
Oh, I thought he wanted me to name somebody from my local.
Well, you could do that, but you're not going to make any friends that way, Bill.
Wow, the most boring player.
Well, I will go ahead and give you a moment to think, because, for me, there's a player that I've been trying to make work because she basically decimates selective lists, sort of reads like, the list of the first 4 teams I'm going to paint. Okay. So Decimate would be a great player for me to paint and have available because I could, in theory, get a lot of use out of her. She's... but the problem I have with Decimate is that I haven't yet figured out sort of what Decimate does, right? Like, she's got a couple of situational character plays, which are a little dry. Her trait list is, it lacks, things that are unique to her. I mean, it's all good. Her playbook is steady. She's going to generate a lot of momentum. She's going to do some damage. She's got good. She's got a great 2-inch melee zone. She's got decent defensive stats. She generates good influence. She's got a high attack. She's got a great move. She's a backup striker. Like, Decimate's got all this stuff going for her. Yet when I play her, pretty much all she does is walk around one of the flanks, tapping a couple points of damage out and generating a bit of momentum. Now, that's not a bad thing to have a player who's going to consistently generate momentum for you, consistently threaten a flank that if you send a ball unprotected down that side, she's going to be able to come in and get it and sneak away and probably score a goal. I mean, she's got tools, but I think what she lacks is personality. Most of the players that I would replace with Decimate just have more personality than Decimate,
Now, and I think I'm wondering how. Let's come back. Make a note for a future episode once I get some Union games in.
Yeah,
like heavy Union games. So let's come back and talk about Union players. And the reason I say that is I think you're looking at Decimate as a replacement model instead of as part of the Union team.
That is very true, because that's exactly what I'm doing, is looking at her as, am I bringing her in for Brick? Am I bringing her in for Harmony? Am I getting a good trade there? So I do think that what she brings to a Union team is maybe a bit more standout than what she brings in as a replacement. And that's entirely possible.
And let me say this. My initial Union lineup, the initial team that I'm putting down to start playing around with is, Blackheart and Coin, of course, Rage, Decimate, Mist, and Hemlock.
Yeah, but what I'm afraid is that what makes her boring as a Union sub is still going to be boring in a Union team. She might just stand out a bit more in effectiveness or efficiency above the players that when she's not replacing somebody, she's still a little dull.
That's fair. Like I said, let's revisit her because
that's just an opinion.
I just have to spend the time to prove them out.
Absolutely. All right.
So if we're talking about players, I mean, can we throw mascots in there?
Sure.
From a play standpoint, and I actually like the model as much as I pick on it. Salt, I find to be just the strangest player to put on the field. I have not seen Salt have. I so want to say I have yet to see Salt have a meaningful effect on the game. And I have also tried to strategize sort of, after. Now, I've only faced Salt across the table, but after playing and seeing the frustration of my opponent playing Salt, I've tried to think through in my head how I would use Salt And it's probably the one mascot that I can't bring myself around to really figuring out how to use it, even with the fact that Salt buffs Angel. The buff brings her up to a 5, yeah, but I find I do better with Angel when she's around Shark.
True.
And just having Salt sort of chase Angel around, okay. Now I do kind of worry that Dirge is going to be the same type of problem, where really Dirge is just chasing around other models and trying to get killed.
Right. Yeah, and I do think that sort of mascot trap where they're just there to stand 3.9 inches behind somebody.
Right.
And I mean, that's exactly what I described Coin as being great for earlier. He sort of falls in that same category. Coin is pretty dull too. He's
except
boring.
Coin gives out an influence.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he does what he does,
and a free play.
Well, no, his ability is awesome,
right?
But it's boring because he's just standing behind somebody the whole game.
And that's sort of what I run into with Salt. Is Salt doesn't even really have an ability,
right?
Like Salt's character play is where'd they go.
Yeah, and the thing is, like the players like Salt and Scum, whose buffs are just based on proximity, definitely have that thing where they can just be, the guys who stand 3.9 inches behind somebody, whereas Marbles and Princess give out their buffs when they're engaged, when they're actually in the action, when they're doing something. So they're a bit less boring because of that, if you know what I mean.
I do. And I was just trying to, where I got caught thinking there was in relation to Scum. I think I'm still enamored with Scum simply from the beta.
From what
Scum.
he used to be. No, he used to be the cat from hell, and we'll never stop thinking of him that way. There's going to come a point where people who join this game, like in season 2 or 3, are just not going to understand why we love Scum.
Exactly.
All right. So, and the last question of the night came from.
Wait, did you say last question?
The last question. Well, the last question we're going to answer, not the last question we got, because we're running up against our time wall. So, yeah, there's a couple we didn't get to, but man, we tried. We gave it a good fight. So the last one we're going to answer tonight.
We got to do Matt's question.
We got to do Matt's question because he made the game and he has the ability to tell me things that nobody else knows. So, so Matt asks, which model has been the most fun to A, paint, and B, play?
So for me, now, at this point painting, I have finished all my Masons. I actually got a tower painted up, which I was happy with. And I have painted Blackheart, Coin, Decimate, and Mist. The model for me that was the most fun to paint was Blackheart.
I can imagine.
And, well, for almost an ironic reason, it really came down to I had Blackheart out. All my Union bases, I had done the dry brushing and everything so that they were ready for the static grass. And I'm looking, I put the skin in, which I usually do my skin first and then go back and touch up and clean up the skin. And I had done the skin on Blackheart, and I'm staring at the model and I'm staring at the card, and I knew I wanted to use purples and reds in my team and could not for the life of me figure out what else to do with him.
Right.
Between the armor and the clothes and everything else. And I went off to paint a couple other models. I kept coming back and I'm staring at this model, and I finally went, screw it. Let me start with a black base coat and I'll figure out something from there. And once I did the black and then touched up the armor and put the sort of, I figured I would work back and figure out the areas that the purple and everything didn't go. My transition from black to purple, and then the how the black looked, right? The fact that I didn't really have to touch up my black base coat,
right?
Other than to put some of the, I use some P3 paints, so to put some of the black highlights in there. he completely transformed almost unexpectedly for me. And came out looking... I'm really happy with his paint job. In fact, I'm going to have some pictures up on the board soon. So he, for me, was the most fun to paint just because out of nowhere he surprised me and sort of went, hey, I'm a sexy beast.
Awesome. So I will say that, like, I'm about 21, 22 figures into painting so far. And really every figure I paint is my favorite figure to paint so far. But I will hold out special mention for... Well, first of all, I'll say that Tower, who I painted fairly recently, was just a real pleasure to paint. I mean, that figure is really simple, but just really nice to paint. There's something about how well executed it is, how smooth everything is, how crisp everything is. And he just takes paint.
Yeah, and he was different from the rest of the Masons. I did find that as well. A lot more skin on Tower than there was on the Masons.
And one thing I really appreciate about Tower is that, we see a lot of people, experimenting with more diverse skin tones on that figure. And, I'm a big fan of putting diversity into your model collection just because it's probably good for you. And,
because you live in the U.S.
Yeah, well, yeah. And the thing about Tower is that he is such a non-specific ethnicity, the way that model has been rendered, that all these different versions, the Asian version and the Caucasian version and the African version, they all look right.
Yep.
Like he's a character who just takes all these different influences and he just does good things with them. And so it always looks right. There's just something about Tower. He's just a really well realized figure. There's just something about him, and he was a lot of fun to paint. Now, I will say that in terms of a figure who I'm really looking forward to painting for a lot of reasons, is probably the next one that I'm going to paint after I finish Midas, who's almost done, and that's Mercury. Because not only does Mercury have that big, ribbon of flame that I get to try some fire techniques I've never done before on, but even looking past that party piece that he's got coming out of his hand, Mercury is a great miniature. He's got a really dynamic pose. He's got a great face. He's got a great costume. Like, Mercury is probably going to wind up being one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Guild Ball miniature from Season 1. So I'm really looking forward to painting this guy. Hopefully I will have something to show for myself with him soon. But, yeah, he's definitely a favorite. Now, the other half of that question, most fun to play. Well, you know my answer.
I do. Would it be Flint?
It's
Midas. Come on.
It's only
Midas.
Midas and Flint are both just awesome. And that's the thing. Like, I've got this fixation for Flint, and I've got this fixation for a lot of reasons. But the biggest reason is that he just pays dividends, man. That guy is just awesome. And he's really good at the game I like to play. I love playing the steal the ball and score a goal game. That's my favorite way to play this game. And he's so good at it. So, at the end of the day, there's a reason I spend so much time talking about Flint, and that's because he's just awesome, and I love to play him. It's also a great miniature. And until the Masons get that elephant, he's going to be my favorite player.
I wish I had a better answer for this, but I do not feel like I have played nearly enough games to really make the call yet. I can talk about the most fun to play so far, which for me would be Honor.
Yeah, she does a lot of cool stuff. She does.
But I'm not sure how well she's going to hold up once I start rolling out either the Brewers, the Morticians, or the Union.
Yeah. Well, Stav is definitely in that fun to play category. I've only played the Brewers about twice, and I haven't done well with them either time. But I've just had a lot of fun throwing barrels.
Yep.
You know, there are few things in this game more just outright fun than throwing barrels. So, and Stav is probably up there on that list of best figures in the game as well, and will probably paint amazingly. So, you know, ask me again a year from now, and my answer may be Stav for this question.
Yeah, the whole Brewer play, I had so much fun playing them.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the when you look at Spigot with anybody that's knocked down, you know, when you look at Hooper with anybody that's knocked down,
Yeah.
I mean, just their whole play style, being able to bounce around with Friday,
Yeah.
being able to actually say the various plays they all have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I shoot better after a beer, and you know, shove the boot in, and ramming speed.
Yeah, the Brewers are a frustration for me because I love the models. I love every model in that team. You know, I love the model for Scum. I love the model for Stav. I love the model for Spigot. You know, Friday is a great model. You know, they're all great models, and I want to paint them. You know, I like doing the tartans. I like, you know, everything about them. Their poses are great. They're just. And the idea of the Brewers team is a lot of fun, but I just can't play them. I can't play them. They don't work the way I work. You know, I'm not. I don't play them well, and you know, it's one of those things where I'm going to have to learn to play them well, because once I do get them painted, I'm going to want to play them a lot. So maybe I just need to learn that game, because they really are great miniatures. So. All right, so I think that is all that we are going to try to squeeze into this show. We do appreciate you taking the time to listen to us talk about Guild Ball, and as always, and we will see you next time. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Knees up. Watch the knives. To join the conversation, comment on the show post at guildballtonight.com or email us at guildballtonight@gmail.com. Phil can also be heard on the Game Punting podcast. Bill can also be heard on the Gamers Lounge podcast. Check them out on iTunes.
And now for this week's edition of the Guild Ball Club Roundup. To get your club included in this list, send us an email at guildballtonight@gmail.com. Include the name, location, and best contact method, and we'll get you in the next show. You'll need to resubmit your club about every 3 episodes, so keep that in mind. Armada Games in Tampa, Florida. Find them on Facebook. 1066 Wargaming in Hastings, UK. Also find them on Facebook. Capital Guild Ball at Dream Wizards in Rockville, Maryland. Also on Facebook. 2D6 Wargaming in Cambridge, UK. Also on Facebook. Guinea pigs making a lot of noise in the background. Available in my den. Warhammer Gaming Club in Sunderland, UK. Also on Facebook. Siege Tabletop in Beverly, UK. You guessed it, on Facebook. Sheffield and Rotherham Games Club in Sheffield, UK. Available on Facebook. Group North Wargaming Society in Adelaide, Australia. On Facebook. Chelmsford Bunker in Chelmsford, UK. They didn't say where they were. I'll bet they're on Facebook. War and Peace Gaming Club, Sandy Acre, UK, on Facebook. Slayer Gaming in Mansfield, UK, probably on Facebook. That's a lot of noise, guinea pigs. Thomas House, Dublin, Ireland, Wednesday nights. The Outpost in Sheffield, UK, finally on Facebook.
It is time once again for another installment of Ox's Poetry Corner.
Quit talking about Flint. You guys need to play more teams. He is real good, though.
They like some game show music. Actually, the segment for the clubs, I've got like a do 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 kind of music going on in the background of it. So.
Nice.